listening to the Multifamily Podcast, brought to you by Ron Ruiz and Martin Canchola, co-founders of ApartmentSEO, a premier Google agency, where we discuss current multifamily and real estate trends, apartment marketing strategies, and speak with some of the most influential thought leaders shaping the multifamily industry today.
All right, and we are back with the Multifamily Podcast with Ronn and Martin. Okay, so this is going to be a pretty fun episode for me particularly. We're going to be talking with Nathan Poth, who's an established real estate investor, broker, and property manager. He owns LoCali Management Group, and he's also a land investor at LoCali Ranch and has been in the multifamily industry since 2004. Now, we will get into each topic today to leave our community with some thoughts into where Nathan believes the real estate market is headed, breaking into the property management industry, and how anyone can find a nice piece of land to monetize no matter their budget. So let's dive in. You ready to rock and roll, Nathan?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Nice.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Nathan, for joining us today. As you know, and Martin knows, we were excited about setting this up because you and I have known each other for many years. I think particularly when we were in our previous chapters in life, right? Having that working for the man, having the entrepreneurial dreams, really just putting it front row center and saying, we're going to do this. And what's cool about, I think, both of our stories, I'm not trying to steal your thunder, but I believe that we literally were looking in the mirror at the same time and saying, this is where we need to be and what we need to do and all the people we need to touch. So I'm so proud of you, of everything that you've accomplished. We talked about it day one, about what we were going to do together and individually and for the industry. And you definitely have set out and did it and then some. I mean, I know you're currently in Tennessee in your RV on a long distance trip. I mean, doing that, that's something I should have put out there because that's what I want to do too. But you're looking to move and shake. I'm not going to take too much away from what you're going to talk about, but I know you're looking to move and shake in other states and already have. So cannot wait to find out more from you about how you decided not only to get into LoCali and the property management side, but more on the real estate side. Like you got your real estate broker. So I want to hear about that.
Sure. So, I mean, it's kind of a long-winded story, but I, originally went to culinary school and I was in the back of the house kitchen and, in high school and stuff, you don't really think about family, friends and things like that. You're just kind of thinking about yourself and what you want to do. Well, being stuck in the kitchen, whenever you guys want to go out to eat, or all of us want to go out to eat, it's nights, weekends, holidays, all those things. And it just wasn't for me. I had a girlfriend at the time and, things were starting to get serious and I started thinking about it more. And so I ended up getting out of the industry altogether and was selling office supplies with a neighbor. It was like something out of the garage. And my territory was Irvine. So I started knocking on all the doors. Well, Irvine Company was one of those doors and just kept hitting them hard probably every week on Monday at 10 o'clock. I mean, every week. They never bought one single pencil from me because they already had established big, huge contracts already with, some of the bigger name brands. So, but anyways, they ended up offering me a job because, I was so persistent and, they gave me a discount in rent and all these things. So I was able to live the, multi-million-dollar life staring at the ocean at Irvine Company property for a fraction of the cost. So, and I made good money. So it was awesome. So that's how I got into property management anyway. And, I was with Irvine Company for a while, worked for a few other third-party management companies outside of that. Of course, the grass was always greener. That's kind of when I think Ron and I kind of linked up just being in the industry anyway, and ended up wanting to do my own thing. So I started Poth Company, and it was like a consulting company. So I basically was doing the secret shops and going through the whole spiel and putting my reports together. And ultimately it kind of turned into a staffing company, which, it's a great industry. It just wasn't for me. And these owners were saying, well, why are we hiring this, management company when you're coming in doing all the work? And, it was difficult to, keep that relationship with that management company because, they probably just didn't have that enough regional support at the time, if it was like a smaller or mid-sized management company. And that's the hard part with property management is, you really depend on your people. You learn about the 4 Ps, people, product, promotion, price, that type of thing. And I just kind of had that instilled into me. So I was just thinking, just something really basic. And for my niche market, what it kind of developed into is, these owners, they maybe it wasn't the institutionalized asset that they were asset managing and with a larger company, but maybe they saw a good deal like a duplex or a fourplex or something like that. And then something like that was too small for the management companies I was working with. So they said, well, why don't you manage that for me? I said, absolutely. At the time I didn't have my real estate license or anything. I was just kind of doing my thing. And so I ended up getting my real estate license, and then I was under a broker for a little bit, and started just picking up more and more units. It was tough. I mean, the first few years of any business is really hard. I was surviving off of a triplex. It was like $150 a month for a year. All my savings were done. Luckily, I had a great partner in life that was helping pay the bills and stuff, but got through all of that. And then, just keeping to the basics. Property management's very different from the sales side of things. You have specialties, and a perfect example would be, you have doctors. If you have a toothache, you're not going to go to a brain surgeon. You're going to go to a dentist. All doctors, but they all specialize in different things. My specialty has always been property management. So I think, for me, I like to refer to a local broker that does sales in an area if somebody's looking to sell, because, I may get potential business from them. And that's a good way to start. Facebook was huge for me. I started creating Facebook groups to get other leads coming in. Just posting other people's listings, giving them the credit that it's their listing. But usually on Facebook, you just kind of see the photo and just assume because I posted it might be mine. I may have just let them assume it was my listing, but that kind of got the ball rolling. And then, I picked up, 50 units, 50 doors, all fee management stuff. And then worked myself up to about 350 units at one time. And it was insane. I mean, it was normal. I mean, Ron and Martin, I'm sure, starting any business, you throw everything to the wall, see kind of what sticks, and then you just kind of narrow it down from there. You got to deal with those hard clients. You got to deal with those hard residents. I mean, and then you could kind of set back once you get kind of established and kind of cherry pick which ones you want to keep. Maybe you need to kind of increase rates on certain things, and it just kind of naturally settles down a little bit. And that's kind of where I've been for the past few years. I'm now, I try to keep it about 150 doors or less. I am a single owner operator. It is an LLC. I have somebody that helps me, Kristen, who's been in the industry. She has a couple kids, got her a pair of rainbow flip-flops and told her, here's your new work attire, and go ahead and bring your kids with you. I built my business with my two kids in the back of my truck. My dogs are usually they're actually back here right now, and so it's a small operation, and there's tons of ways to make money on it. And that's basically where we are. I think I kind of got you caught up with how things started for me, and yeah.
It sounded like you really had to embrace social media in the beginning too, as well, right? You were sharing other people's listings that weren't even yours, right? And you were just kind of sharing it to kind of spread the love.
Right, exactly. Social media is everything right now. I mean, everybody has a Facebook account, for the most part, I should say, or some type of profile online. When you're applying, you're usually applying online now. You're not really going to the door. I mean, we're in a different age. It's not really door knocking anymore. It's all social media for the most part. And, you have LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a great one. It's kind of like a resume type form Facebook, I guess. I don't know. And then you have Facebook, which, LinkedIn, you'll approve anybody because you just want your network to be larger. Facebook, it's a little bit more intimate. You have pictures of your kids on there. You have pictures of your home. You have, your dog and, cute puppies and, things like that, right? Like that's Facebook. So it's a little bit more close. So you have this closeness with Facebook, which I felt was good. So I think, how you work your social media and build your brand and build your image is everything. I mean, I'm scruffy. I wear my hats. I mean, I used to wear flip-flops a lot. Now I wear boots because I got in the land thing. But, but I mean, that's kind of my thing, and people either like it or they don't. There's millions of property managers out there. There's millions of people who can do social media stuff. It's about that relationship. It's about, pulling good work, having good work ethic, and having a passion for it. And it comes off into your business. So.
Okay. Well, I had a question for you. How about property management and like screening residents and using digital like their digital media? Like say they have a Facebook profile, like is that all legit to do? Like if you're screening new residents, are you allowed to like check their Facebook if it's public, LinkedIn? How does some of that work?
So no,
Yeah.
you are going to when you're screening in. So this is California. So
Mhm.
California, we can only discriminate based on income and credit.
Got it.
So that's the biggest thing. And you can see a story based on the income and credit. You don't even really want to get a photo ID unless you're doing a tour or something like that. But that's not part of the application process because that could be perceived as, maybe they might have a certain color of skin or a national origin or
Fair
something like that.
housing
So
violation.
fair housing violation. So you have to be very careful. So, a lot of people try to self-manage and, you kind of go off your gut and it seems harmless, let's say, as an example, like, oh, I don't want kids there, because it's not because they don't like kids or are discriminate or intentionally discriminating against them, but they just feel like they're stairs and they don't want them to trip and fall. Well, that's a huge violation in California. And so you have to be very careful. So it's very important to, have the right team on there and, keep things fair and consistent across the board. And then you're fine. So
really good fair housing consultant, right?
yeah, I mean, yeah, you have to be very, very careful with all those things.
No, and in many regards, that's exactly why somebody should hire a Nathan, especially like more of the smaller companies, because they may not be abreast as to the latest laws or just things that they could be in violation of. And that's where a professional property manager could really come in handy to maybe it is an initial cost on the monthly for the management fee, but it could save you a lot in legal fees and even reputation.
100%.
And building that reputation. I mean, this is what you guys do. You guys know what you can and can't post because you're in the industry. You guys specialize in the apartment industry. And again, look, there's millions of social media guys out there that can do this stuff, but you guys specialize in the apartment. So, to have a diverse array of types of photos to track that, that credit and income type resident, right? So
we like to say we speak multifamily. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do.
We're trilingual here.
I think we are now, right?
Totally. Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of chatter out there about a recession looming and impending real estate crash. How possible do you think this is in our near future?
I don't want to claim myself as an expert in sales. I will say in property management, I have noticed that rents have gone up significantly. I've noticed that, there's more and more of my clients looking to purchase properties. Things are much higher right now and they've been climbing. I've been kind of noticing it softening a little bit. Things aren't renting over a weekend anymore, or within hours, which was happening in the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. And now interest rates are starting to go up. Word on the street. It's supposed to go up again, I think August 1. I'm hearing interest rates, before, it was like 2.95 to 3 point something. Now they're getting closer to the 5, 4.5, and I'm hearing another points going up. So naturally what's going to happen is it's going to make the buying it's going to cost more to borrow that money, which is potentially going to drive down those prices, is the theory anyway. But who knows? I wish I was the expert in that or could read the future, but that's kind of the word on the street. I think the market is going to start softening as or at least level out anyway. And if COVID didn't take out the market, I don't know what can. So who knows?
Yeah, and I think that those, definitely the rates are going above 5% already. And I think that those, because did you find that you had a lot of people either competing against your own bids or your clients' bids paying cash? Because I think those buyers will still be out there and keeping the activity going, right? For certain properties.
Absolutely. So, you have a lot of foreign money that comes in and wants to place their money, and they're just waiting, like the last recession. They're waiting to come in and, somebody's really starting to hurt. Let's say somebody got a creative arm type loan, and that 10 years is coming up. Well, they were used to paying that 2-3%, and now it could potentially jump to 5, 6, maybe 7. Can they afford that now? Are their rents where they need to be? Are they managing the property, properly? So those are those are all big concerns. So once somebody slips, there's going to be somebody there to pick up their fall. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. I hate to admit it, but I'm kind of waiting for that right now. I sold one of my properties and just sitting, and things are getting attractive, but they're not where I want them to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I think you can buy at any time. There's really no bad time to buy real estate. There really isn't. You just have to adjust your goals. So if you're buying high right now, that's fine. Like for me, I'm looking actively for properties. I think Martin is, and it sounds like you are as well, Ron. Just if you don't sell, you're not taking a loss. The real estate market, we all know, goes up and down. I mean, if you don't plan on ever selling it and just building your portfolio, buy anytime. Just know that you're probably buying at maybe a little bit higher time, and everything is going to adjust accordingly. In 10 years or so, it's probably going to come right back up and then some. We always kick ourselves like, oh, geez, I wish I would have bought that when that was $100,000, and now it's what, 1.2 for that same property. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, we all kick ourselves for it. So.
Yeah. And, or when you sell, like I've looked up old properties that I've sold and I'm like, dang it, we could have had an extra, X amount of dollars in the bank, but then you look at what you were able to do with that once you do liquefy a little bit. And
that's the thing.
It's always taken me to a whole nother level personally. And so I always recommend buying and selling as needed. So with that being said, like I don't have a real estate license. Do you think that it's necessary to have a real estate license to buy properties these days?
I mean, to purchase properties, no. Link up with a good real estate agent and or broker, some form of brokerage, and if you have an expert on your side, then you're good. You can focus on what your lifelong goals are. So I don't think it's necessary. No.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest perk for you, Nathan, being a real estate agent broker is that you don't have to pay the fee, right? The fees of the cost of real estate. But I mean, I know my mom's a realtor and she went through all that. And so you got to keep up on all your licenses, all your fees, all the different things that come with that, right? So if you're just the investor, then it makes sense to just be the investor versus the real estate or the broker,
That's right. Yeah.
So when it comes down to it, the different types of real estate, you have single family, multifamily, industrial. What are some that are the most attractive to you, or maybe for new investors, maybe just hitting the scene?
Yeah. I think it really depends on what your brand is. I like the boutique stuff. I like the unique properties. I like those things. And that could be across the board. That could be a unique piece of land, and that could be a unique duplex. It could be a single family home, a condo. I think every property has their own uniqueness. It could be a cookie cutter row, and one might have a lake view and the other one, staring at a wall. So I think every unit is unique, and you can adjust market rates based on what's more desirable for each one. A lot of people like the commercial route, the industrial stuff, because it's kind of more business oriented. You're able to do a triple net leases on those and charge everything back: taxes, insurance, and common area maintenance, things like that. So all it's called CAM. So you can charge all those things back. I kind of like the craziness of multifamily with the tenants and just having lots of drama and knowing all the ins and outs and stuff like that. I mean, geez, I could write a book in a week sometimes when I just take over a new property, especially like those 20 unit ones where there's may or may not have on-site managers. It's like all the stuff that's going down, it's juicy stuff. It's great.
I've always said we need a reality TV program.
Oh my gosh, we would probably break every fair housing law possible.
Yeah, I know.
If we said what we were thinking, oh my gosh.
We need some good editors, right, to stay like legit.
Oh my god! I mean, every face would have to be blurry. All the addresses. What could you imagine? That would be
funny. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Well, a little bit for our audience, I really want to brag a little bit about you. Not only obviously are you a property management, own a property management company, real estate broker. You're a superior dad. You're a dog dad, amazing partner. Let me see what else you have. You're a road warrior, entrepreneur at heart. But you also were obviously recognized from some of our industry organizations, such as the Apartment Association of Orange County. You're an executive board member there, and also from the SoCal Rental Housing Association. And this has been for years. So how did that come to be, and how do you find the time?
it kind of fell in my lap. I never really wanted to get that in depth into it. But so Frankie with Buffalo Maintenance, he actually he's done a few projects for me, and he's always been bugging me. You should join the apartment association. I'm like, well,
I love Frankie.
He's the best. Yeah,
amazing.
But I really didn't have much interest. But I think Ron, you and I were doing these quarterly parties. You remember? And
Sure.
that's kind of when we were starting. And these quarterly parties were getting larger and larger, and we would pick these, very glamorous locations along the coast, and people would show up. And I remember I would have to. I mean, this is when I first started. Again, I'm just like surviving off like $150 a month. I would get my credit card and just hope that I would find sponsors within the crowd. And Ron was the man, would usually pick up the guy.
We had some good times, yeah.
Yeah. But we'd get other guys in there too. And so it always worked out, but it was always nerve wracking. But what sold me on AAOC anyway, the Apartment Association of Orange County, is they said, well, we really need to up our ice cream socials, or, our little meetings in our library or whatever it was. I mean, I'm sure it was fine, but I mean, kind of what we were doing, it was very different, right? So they said, well, they'll put their credit card down and then we can find sponsors for you and do all these things. I was like, oh, well, that sounds great. So I was able to kind of create the products and service committee, which is for basically on the vendor side. Any vendors that come in through the apartment association, they're part of the PSC. And
you've done a great job with that.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So we've been, now we're doing like cruises, and we're doing, all kinds of stuff. We just had an Angels game, and, all sold out tickets and stuff like that. It's been really fun. So, but yeah, so that's really developed into that. And then kind of worked my way up. I became a chairman of the PSC committee after Frankie kind of stepped aside. And so I stepped up, and then they asked me if I had any interest on becoming on the board. So I said, sure, yeah, I could probably do that. So, you had to get sworn in, and everybody voted me in. It was kind of nerve wracking. I mean, we got some big time guys on there. It was super nerve wracking. So, but anyways, I got on there, and we meet every month and kind of talk about what we want to do with the industry, specifically in Orange County. There's a legislative side of things, and a bunch of different committees. So I kind of have my hands in a little bit of everything. I'm more of a fly on the wall, just to kind of be in the know of what's happening in Orange County anyway. Just that's where I'm based, so it works out. And then we needed a representative for the California Housing Association, CalRHA, and Steve Derringer. He's our main attorney for AOC anyway, and does great for evictions. If you ever need him, look him up. But he asked me to step in and do that. So I started going in with sitting as a chairman for CalRHA as well. We're part of the National Apartment Association, so we need to have a state representative association. So that's how I got into the association side.
So what do you think are some benefits for new people getting into the multifamily industry and being a part of their local apartment association? What are some benefits that they might be able to get out of it?
So for me, it's the networking, 100%. It's kind of nice to have on my resume that I'm, on these committees and I'm active, and, you have a lot of people coming together. The networking aspect is huge. If you're working it, a lot of people just like to throw money at it. They get your one-page ad, band ads, things like that. That works too, just to kind of have that exposure. Sure. But, really working it and showing up to these, we have a lot of free events as well. The forms, the legal support, the contacts that you have. It's really, I think it's important for anybody to be a part of any association in your local region, whether it's this on the state side or the National Apartment Association, or, it really depends on where you guys are doing business. Now, you guys are with NAA, and, I know you guys get a booth there. How was San Diego? You guys have a good time?
Oh yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, we had Ruben there as well, Ron's brother DJing. So we brought
Nice.
everyone was coming from all the way across the land, all the way across from the conference, all the way over there. They were trying to find the music. We were the only place bumping music, and yeah, it was.
I think I heard him from Tennessee, actually.
Yeah, always a good time with when Ruben's there and it's loud. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably do an episode on AIM. Actually, Ron will probably talk about having Ruben on, talk about our experience at NAA.
Yeah, we totally should. Yeah. No, I think that's great advice, Nathan, for the apartment association. The other thing that I'm going to add to is, and tell me if I'm wrong, but is also on the legislation side. You brought that up earlier, but I know that, obviously for me, we invest in a lot of multifamily properties, also single family properties. And when it comes to legislation, I think that it's good to be part of a bigger voice. And that's what the associations really do. I mean, you as an individual owner, or one person as an individual owner has, power, but collectively, I think we can make a lot of good and progressive changes, for our industry and residents alike, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guarantee you running a property management company cannot be easy. You mentioned some of the woes already about some of the things, and I'm sure you can't disclose all of the stuff, but what are some of the daily challenges you face and how do you overcome them? I think our audience could appreciate that.
It's refreshing to get like a phone call once in a while when somebody's just saying hello, because that's very rare in property management. Nobody wants to call the manager or ownership, and they call you because there's a flood going on, or there's a fire, or there's a naked woman running around with a laundry basket because they rented a room to a Craigslist ad. So it's crazy. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on. I mean, you're dealing with people's lives. You're not selling them a car and see you in 4 or 5 years. You're talking to them every month. You're making sure rent's on time. You're making sure that they have a nice, safe, clean home, right? And surrounding areas. And you get the barking dogs at the middle of the night. Yeah, there's always something. So, but I thrive in crazy. I don't know what else to say.
I think you have to when you're on this side.
Yeah,
that's right.
Multitasker.
Do you have one property management horror story that you can mention anonymously? And
anonymously.
How that
I could. Well, so I kind of brought up the naked lady running around with the laundry basket. So I'll get into a little bit more detail about that one. I won't disclose the address or name, but and it wasn't even yeah. So it was midday. This was midday. This was probably last year, and there was a tenant in there, single guy. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and he would basically find a roommate, and he was going through a lot of roommates. I just thought maybe it was just a issue with personality or whatever it was. But they would fill out applications through me once he found them on Craigslist. And then they would stay there for about 6 months or so. And then you'd request and everybody would sign off on the lease and stuff like that, just roommate removal forms. Well, then it was quiet for a while. And then I would start getting these phone calls from some of the neighbors, like there was women coming in and out of this apartment. And I didn't really think anything of it. Maybe the guy's dating, finally, good job, guy. That's what I'm thinking in the back of my mind. And it turns out that then I get another call, and it's a heavier set woman walking naked with a laundry basket, going down and doing the laundry in the laundry room. This is a common area laundry room, not a private and just walking through the hall, down the stairs, and to the laundry room doing laundry. And of course, my phone just blowing up, right? And this is a 16-unit building, and everybody's calling me. They're like, "There's this naked woman walking around." So I call the guy. I'm like, "Hey, Mr. Tenant, just so you know, there's somebody nude leaving your apartment and doing laundry. I just wanted to touch base, let you know that that's not okay. And if you can maybe get a towel or something and wrap it up. I'm not on site, right? So I'm trying to call this stuff in. And so it turns out that she was responding to a Craigslist ad. He was looking for a female roommate for free rent in exchange of cooking, and doing laundry and all the cleaning and stuff like that. Basically a hired wife. But I mean, it's just stuff like that. It's like, oh my gosh, like I mean, I don't even know how to respond to that just as a human being. So you just pull out the lease and you go to it. You're causing a nuisance. That type of stuff. I mean, I guess I could probably kick somebody out for farting too loud for causing a nuisance, but it's just that's one story of many. That could be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. You forgot to put the career apparel requirement.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. I need to update my lease. Must wear clothes in common area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obvious.
That's awesome. So not that we've shared enough horror stories, but if there was somebody who wanted to break into the world of property management, what would be your number one advice?
You need to have thick skin. You're gonna have some really good days, and you're gonna have some really bad days. And I think I can say for any, even if they're the worst tenant possible, evictions are not fun. I think just being fair and consistent and coming up with something that you really have to enjoy dealing with people, because it's a people business. It sounds like it's a real estate business, but property management's not numbers. It's, for the most part, that's probably a very small percentage of it is the numbers. It's dealing with people, and you really have to be a people person to survive it long enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think that's great advice. I used to say when I was on site that we manage people's lives, not just apartments or buildings.
Yep, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to be getting into probably one of my favorite topics to discuss, and what we'll be talking with Nathan about, and that is land investing and land hacking. So Nathan, how did you get into land investing, and tell us about your first project in 29 Palms, California?
All right. Well, Martin and I actually got into the land business because of you, my friend. So COVID hit, and government said you don't have to pay rent anymore. So I got nervous. I'm a fee manager. If rents don't come in, I don't make any money. So I was trying to figure out where everybody was going. I happen to be into off-roading, and I've got a couple trucks that are pretty built out and can take on anything. And I was noticing when I was ordering supplies that they were taking much longer, to get, not only because all the shipping containers were behind, but because everybody was hooking up their truck and going off-roading and getting dispersed and going out, right, and camping and things like that. So the whole outdoor world was opening up, even though you're supposed to be locked down. Well, they were really locking down in big cities, right? So everybody wanted to get out rural. And I think that's why everything kind of exploded, to be honest, because now you don't necessarily have to live in the same city that you're working anymore. You can drive 2-3 hours out and sit in traffic, especially in Southern California, but you can get a much more space outside. But getting back into the land aspect of things, I found that there's this, campgrounds were closed. That was another thing, right? Like all the major campgrounds were closed. So I was kind of reaching out, just kind of putting feelers out there. I enjoy camping. I could sleep on a rock. I happen to have an RV because I have kids, and it's basically a portable bathroom. So whenever there's like a little pit stop, we can just pull over and they can use the bathroom. But I enjoyed road tripping. I drove all the way out here to Tennessee, and we went up to West Virginia, all these things, and that's something I've always enjoyed. So when I kind of put that out into the social media world, again, social media helps. Martin shared some interest and mentioned that he owns some raw land as well. I said, well, that's great. And he invited me to this place up there. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I mean, there's no cell service. There's no toilets. There's no electricity. I mean, there's no water and nothing. I mean, it's just completely empty. And it's like, that's heaven for me. I mean, for my phone not to work for like an hour is awesome, because my phone's always off the hook about crazy nudists running around the neighborhood, right? So it was kind of nice and refreshing, and I think people need that, And I think COVID, if there was anything good out of it, it really got people back to the basics. Like, what do you really need in life? I mean, there's a lot of people getting sick, and it's scary, and but just getting outside and refreshing, and it really kind of slowed everything down. You don't really need to be in that active, crazy city life. There's still life out there, in the wilderness and stuff. So so Martin and I kind of came up with an agreement, and we started using this app called HitCamp. And HitCamp is very similar to Airbnb, but it's for campers. And you can put parameters in there when you're searching on HitCamp. I have my own tent. I could drive there. Do I need 4-wheel drive to get to the property? Can I get a 40-foot RV there? Is it glamping material for Ron? Is there full hookups? Is there sewage and things like that? Right. So we actually just kind of cleared out like a little 10 by 10 area. We found a few rocks and made like a little fire pit. And there's campsite 1. We put a stick in there, spray painted it, and did, we called it Camping LoCali. And we did a little deal on it. And, we started getting campers in there. And that's a way to monetize vacant land, And I remember Martin saying, as long as I could just make enough to cover my taxes. And, taxes on land is not anything like houses. It's a couple $100. I think we made that and then some.
And I think initially it was like a test run too, to see if like, okay, can we rent out this raw piece of land? And it's just pretty much raw. I have a dry cabin shell, 10 by 12, bare shell. It's just like a shed to cabin type thing. And it was just raw, like a hunter trapper cabin. And, some people want that kind of rustic wilderness type experience. And, some need the more established, campgrounds. And, that's a place where I'd like to be someday. But for now, it was really just land banking, just investing in the land. And I was able to get it owner finance too. So put 50% down. That was probably something that's good to mention when buying land, which we'll probably touch on that. But that's how I was able to buy it, was through owner financing and put down half and then make payments. And I actually just paid it off literally in the last 3 months or so. It's recorded, all done. So I own it free.
Nice.
So I'm pretty stoked about that.
Awesome. Oh yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So for any new land investors, obviously out there, because there are definitely still some good land parcels out, with no experience, what do you really need to consider before buying a piece of raw land?
I think it depends on what your quote use would be. So if you want that campsite, if you want to build something on it, if it really depends on what your desire is. There's land everywhere. I mean, I've driven basically across the U.S. and I'm always looking at what I feel is cool. Do you want green? Do you want desert? Do you want waterfront, lake, creeks going through it? And if you want all those things, that's great. But then you have to look at the zoning. You have to look at any legal roads, legal access to the property. I mean, there's some people that just, buy a piece of property and it might be completely off of a road, like 4 or 5 parcels in, which they call landlocked. And, you could get to it. I could walk to that property. I could drive through that property, but legally I'm trespassing through those 5 to 10 lots in between. Usually those ones are going to be very cheap because, you're landlocked, right? And you don't really have legal access to it. Now, what you're supposed to do in that situation, let's say you inherit that piece of property and you probably want to hold on to it because you remember going camping there as a kid with grandma, grandpa, or whatever. You would contact all of those owners in between and get a legal easement. Usually they might want some money in exchange for that, but now you have a legal easement to it. But then let's say you want to build something on it. So now you have your legal access to the property. So it's nice to find something that's on a legal road already if you don't want to go through those steps, if you're out there looking. Where's your nearest electric? How are you going to get power there? So you want to see if you're near telephone poles. In California, San Bernardino County anyway, it's about $10,000 per pole. And per pole is usually about 50 to 60 yards away. So how much do you want to invest in that? Or you can go off grid if zoning allows. Let's say you want to park a trailer there. Well, some zoning won't allow you to park a trailer there. Like if you're in a neighborhood, let's say you're in Newport Coast and you see a vacant lot, probably not going to see a RV pulled up and camping out with campfires and your dogs running loose. It just probably won't happen. But out in San Bernardino County, possibly, depending on the location of it. So just look at the zoning. I'd probably, look at your listings if you're not licensed or not too sure about it, and contact that listing agent that's on there. Usually it's nice to. That's why listing agents like to get the listings. They may not even show it. They'll probably just put a lockbox or tell you to drive out there. But to have that listing, they're usually going to be that local expert because they're calling all the local owners. They know that area. Call that listing agent. They should know what the zoning is, and at least give you the tools to see how to call the county or the city to see what you're allowed to do. And when you call the county and the city, you'll never get the same answer in my experience. Everybody's going to tell you something differently, and it's hard to exactly say. Let's say I want to build a tiny house. Well, they don't like to call them tiny houses in certain areas. They'll call them an RV, because tiny houses really are an RV, but in their code books, tiny house isn't in the codes. It's RV is allowable. So something that allows an RV may allow the tiny home, or they might want a fixed structure, and it might be 160 square feet minimum, let's say, and then your bathroom needs to be a certain way. Well, now you can build a tiny house on a foundation that's 160 square feet, but they don't call them tiny homes. They just call it a 160 square foot structure with bathroom or whatever. But now you have to worry about your septic. You have to worry about your water supply. California does not allow those large water tanks anymore. If you're grandfathered in, you can do that, but they're not issuing any new permits for them anyway. So those are all the little things that you need to look at. So if you are buying a piece of property, it has a septic on there, it has a water tank, just check to see if it's permitted. And you can call the county and get the records of anything permitted, because that's going to be important. That's what's going to increase the values when you have the infrastructure there ready to build. And again, you might just want it to be raw land, and you don't really care because you don't want it to ever touch it. You just want to visit it and see the beauty, and that's fine too. Just know that going into it.
Nice. Okay. So how did you buy your first piece of land? Was it a cash deal, or did you do owner finance? I mean, it can be kind of hard to finance land. I mean, doing it with a bank is not really possible these days, from what I understand.
I mean, it's possible, but it's usually going to be in that established neighborhood that already has the infrastructure there. And the banks basically, want that construction loan and then that refinance on top of it. And you can buy something with 20% down on something like that. So let's say, use an example, you find a lot for $100,000, right? I'm just throwing out a number. You put your $20,000 down, and then you're going to build 1,500 square foot home. It's going to cost you maybe $400,000 or $500,000 to build that, perfect home that you're looking for. The cost to build. Then you've got your $100,000 land, so you're $600,000 into it. Potentially, it's probably going to be worth $800,000. You've got your 80% equity, and then now you can roll over into that. Now you have your home. So that's one benefit of having that land. You're going to build that equity literally when you're building it, and banks like that. But for guys like you and me that just want to go camp and kick rocks and whatever it is that we do,
play in the dirt.
Play in the dirt. Owner financing is a great option, and there's tons of online places that do it. Landio, I think, is one of the big ones. I personally look on Redfin in California anyway. I like Redfin. I mean, obviously the MLS is good too, but if you're not licensed or have access to that, Redfin's a great one. Zillow is good. Realtor.com's good. But whatever your favorite one is. So then you see it, and then you call the agent and you say, hey, I really like this property. Usually land, not lately, but usually land sits there for about a year before it sells. Might be $15,000 for an acre, let's say, or whatever. And this is out in the desert, let's say. I'm just using 29 Palms as an example. So I found mine. It was listed at $15,000. It was sitting on the market for a little bit. Called the agent and said, hey, I've noticed it's been sitting on the market for a little bit. I'm willing to pay that $15,000 versus coming down to $10,000 cash or something and throwing in a lowball offer. But do you think your client would be interested in doing owner financing? Maybe I could put $3,500 down and then pay them 10% interest on that over the next 3 years. You think you'd be open to that? Went back and forth a little bit and worked out a deal, and now I'm the new owner. So in my situation, I put $3,500 down. I paid about $350 a month roughly over 3 years, and the owner makes a little bit of money. It's a tax benefit for them. They don't get hit with all those taxes all up front. It just kind of spread out a little bit more on the interest, and it works out.
It's a great way to get them, and maybe they want more cash flow than like an upfront sum of money. Another podcast I follow is called The Land Geeks. I think probably you can Google The Land Geeks or landgeeks.com, but they're all about land investing, and they actually buy up plots of land they'll buy them cash. They'll like send out mailers to people, other landowners, and try to like pretty much lowball, get the offer. They just want to get rid of the land kind of thing. And then they sell it to somebody and they do a good owner finance deal. So they'll buy the raw land probably in lots and then just kind of lease them out. And then they get this nice steady cash flow. And good thing for them is if they don't pay the person who's buying the land doesn't pay the monthly fee, then they keep the deed no matter what. So they can't lose on those kind of
deals. And that's the flip side of, kind of how we went in buying. There's a big business on the land side. I mean, there's you have the tax auctions that go on every county on an annual basis. People that forgot to pay their taxes after 2 years, and sometimes you forget. Sometimes you inherit a property you don't even know that you did, because it wasn't in the will properly. But now, let's say we have this property, and it goes up to the tax auction. You go there, and a lot of people just. The county, all they want is that $200 in tax that was passed to.
Money, yeah.
So starting bid is $200. Sorry.
Right.
So starting bid's $200. Let's say you pick it up for $500. Well, now you got a $500 property paid in cash, and then you go off and sell it for $2,500. You list it for, let's say, it's a good deal on the market, and it's a good deal for you because you're making some profit there, and then you owner finance it. So what you say is, put $500 down. That's what you paid for it. And you pay me, $200, $100, $50 for the next 5 years at some interest. And you do that over and over. And I mean, that's a decent way to make money. And you don't need to worry about tenants because, the new people are owning it. And I mean, what are they going to do? Mess up your rock? Potentially so.
So what are some options for monetizing your raw land? I know that I've been a part of an investment group, and there was an opportunity prior to the pandemic. Kind of glad I didn't pull the trigger then, but looking into it now again about buying raw land and using it for either solar production, or even the option where solar and or medical marijuana production.
Cultivation, yes.
Cultivation, that is, yeah. And you're just the landlord, you just own the land, and then they run everything else and pay you rent. So what are some options that you know of for monetizing outside of the camping stuff you were talking about?
I have not been in that side of land. I've been doing it for about 2 years now, and it's mainly just been the camping stuff.
Okay.
But I know that the marijuana grow and cultivation has been huge in the legal states anyway. Mm-hmm. And I believe you still need to get your proper permitting and things like that. Right. I'm sure. That's probably a little bit harder to come by now. I know San Bernardino, there's a lot of illegal growers that are growing underground. So when they fly the drones over, you can't really see anything. There's just stack. For me, I try to steer away from that. I know it's legal, but there's still an underground market that's going on. And, I personally would be a little nervous leasing to somebody that's not legit. So make sure if you are leasing it that way, make sure you have the proper paperwork, everything's legal, and you could put that in your lease agreement, obviously. And, if they're, getting outside the law, but even if you get with somebody that's a legal grow, and it could just be a normal person doing it, but we don't know if it's, the Mexican mafia coming up and, that has all this money and doing that. And it's like, if you try to evict them, what are they going to do in return? So just be very careful out there. That's my biggest concern. I've got kids and stuff, and I don't want to get into it just because that's not my specialty. But I don't knock it for anybody doing it. That's for sure.
It's definitely a lot of red tape, a lot of money and permits and fees. I mean, I watch a lot of documentaries on the cannabis industry, and they're just like being just bombarded with all these different fees, where by the time they even get into the business, they're not really profitable. So you have to be a pretty big boy to kind of compete in that.
The guys that are doing it right are not making money. That's for sure. It's that gray area. It's that gray area that's killing it right now. And unfortunately, it's ruining it for the big guys that are doing it right, because it is so strict. I mean, sure, they legalized it, but good luck.
No, but overall, when it comes to land investing, I think whenever you are buying a piece of land, it's important to remember that you're becoming part of a community, right? So really get to know your local realtor, local broker, get in touch. When you go check out land, any kind of real estate, obviously you need to drive around the property, drive around the area, get an idea of how it is, how people are living over there. Is there a lot of trash? Is it clean? And you really, if you Google Maps is what I use primarily to buy land if I can't really go there. And obviously it's important to actually go there too. But Google Maps and Google Earth is a pretty big resource that I'm commonly using. Obviously your land zoning, whether it's zoned for agriculture, residential, it's really important to know what you can do with your land. And you can usually look up, like for me, it's look up Kern County, the different land zoning, and then they'll tell you exactly what those land lots can be used for. I believe in the power of land banking. So even though I'm buying a piece of raw land, it doesn't cash flow right away. You can still earn equity. You buy the land now, just like real estate, it usually appreciates over time. And plus you have tons of cash flow opportunities, whether it's Airbnb and HipCamp. Airbnb offers a HipCamp style part of the listing. So you could actually, host campers on Airbnb too, whether you want to start a ranch, raising goats, sheep, an orchard or a garden. Even my dad, he has a piece of land in Missouri. He's actually getting into beekeeping. And so monetizing his piece of land by doing that, rural storage facility, and then even water supply. You either usually got to dig a well or buy a property that already has a well or shared access to a well. That's going to save you about 30 grand plus. And if you're more rural, it's going to cost you more anyways. And then if you're in an area where you get good rainwater catchment systems with the metal roof or any kind of system like that, it's going to be pretty invaluable. Other than that, you're just having to haul the water, and even with gas and everything, that can get pretty expensive. So those are just some quick tips that I had. So Nathan, do you have any more plans to acquire any more land? And if so, what parts of the country are you most excited to invest in?
I am, and I'm always looking for deals anyway. For me, it's having the access to. So I have family out here in Kentucky and Tennessee. So it's kind of usually my annual destination anyway. So for me, taking the 40 from California, anything along there would be great. So instead of spending that, let's call it $100 or $150 at a hip camp in somebody else's backyard. Maybe I can do that, and then I can share that same route with other people and have a destination to go to. And that's what I would like to do with the land side of things. And then, on the way, maybe I might pick up some properties, and I happen to know property management, and kind of go from there as well. So I don't know. I'm always thinking, and wheels are turning, and it's part of being an entrepreneur, I guess. I just do what I love.
That's it. That's where it doesn't feel like work, right?
It doesn't. It really doesn't.
That's awesome. Yeah. Speaking of RVing and all the above, you mentioned earlier that are you allowed to park on your land, or is it very rare that you can?
So in 29 Palms, so I'm not within the city limits. If I was within the city limits, I would need to have a primary structure there in order to get to be allowable. Yeah. So I'm on the county side. And I'm allowed to camp there legally. I want to say 2 weekends out of the month. Okay. So I can do that. I may or may not have kept it there a little bit longer. I may or may not have purchased a large water tank. I may or may not have dug my own septic. I may or may not have done a bunch of irrigation and put trees and put in a structure. Nothing has been permitted, may or may not have been permitted. But I'm so off grid that it would be, if it would be a hand slap basically. If something were to come to it, or if it's usually a neighbor that would complain. Again, driving around, meeting your neighbors is always important. Everybody kind of looks out for each other, where my LoCali Ranch is anyway. And I go there just for recreation. I initially wanted to do that Airbnb and hip camp thing there. After putting so much work, blood, sweat, and tears into it myself, I really don't want anybody there. It's my little getaway out in the desert.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I'll probably have to wrap it up on my end over here because the dog's starting to freak out over something. So we can say our final goodbyes. We actually had a very long podcast. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. So thank you, Nathan, again for joining.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Nathan, you're a rock star. Sure. I'm so proud.
I love you guys. Yeah. Thank you. I'm proud of you guys too. You guys are killing it.
You too,
man. That's awesome.
All right. Well, I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. I'll keep you posted on when we put the podcast up.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Multifamily Podcast, brought to you by co-founders of ApartmentSEO, a premier Google agency, with your hosts, Ron Ruiz and Martin Kinchola. Join us again next time as we continue to bring you the latest and greatest in the multifamily industry.